I fucked it. Hi. This is just a short video since I had some people ask about instructions for how to build this, and I thought it'd be cool to just try practicing some more video editing. So here I am doing the video tutorial. Big sturdy desk. It's really nice. It's all made of birch, but you can use whatever you want. And I'm going to show you the super easy way to build it. Yeah. The total dimensions of it are not massive. At the long end, it's just about 6.5 feet long. And just over 3.5 feet. Alright, so the things you're going to need to do this project, you're going to need a circular saw. That's pretty important. Corded or cordless, doesn't matter. And I use a not super aggressive but cool looking plywood saw. It makes nice smooth edges when you cut. You're going to need a drill. The more expensive the better, obviously. 2 drill bits, but for drilling your holes in the top. You don't need to drill holes for the 2x4s because they don't deserve that. You need some screws. I use 2-inch screws, but I would suggest you use 2 1/4 to do the main frame, and 2-inch to do the tops. And then 3.5, as many as you can use to put together the really, not these sections, but the longer sections on the back here, and to put the 2 pieces actually together of the table. These are the ones I like to use. No! I use these for everything. I've been using them for years and still haven't run out because you can reuse them. They're painted and they're Torx head, so you never strip them out like Phillips ones, and they don't rust because you hardly ever take any paint off when you're screwing into stuff. Really good. You need a speed square to get your nice 45-degree angle for this cut. You need a tape measure. That's kind of important. You need some sandpaper to finish smoothing out everything, to round off the edges, and to round off the corners from the sides that you might bump into. Optional things that I would highly recommend that I used for this are a palm sander. That makes the sanding process go a lot faster. A bigger square. This is a 2-foot L square. And an even bigger square. This is a 4-foot drywall square. That makes cutting the big sheets of stuff and drawing the lines a lot faster. And speaking of making things go a lot faster, if you have a miter saw, a really big, old, heavy one, then you can cut your 2x4s a lot quicker. The material that you're going to need, obviously your screws. You're going to need a 4x8 sheet of plywood. This is pine, and it was about $31. And you'll need some 10-foot 2x4s. Those are also pine, just because I knew I wouldn't be staining or doing anything with this right away. I used 4 of them, but I would recommend you buy 5 or 6, depending on how many times you've done cuts and done projects like this. Because if you make wrong cuts, then you have some really short, wobbly legs for your table. So it's best to have extras. The entire tabletop you can cut out of one 4x4 sheet of plywood. And all of the lumber is, if you get all the cuts just right, these are the little offcuts that you will make. And you'll end up using about 4 of them, but get 5 or 6 if you're not super experienced. This desk is actually 2 pieces, and each side of the top here you can easily separate. The only things holding it together are you have 2 and 2 3.5-inch screws, and 2 and 2 2-inch screws. These need to be 2-inch, but since all I had was 2-inch, I used them everywhere else and they weren't quite long enough, so I had to sink them in a good bit by like 1/4 inch. But ideally you would use 2 1/4, 2 1/2 for putting the structure of it together. and then 2" for the deck, and 3.5 to hold the pieces together. The top is held pretty level by just one 2x4 that I cut an angle in so you don't catch it with your knee. But if you use any longer than 2" screws, then you'll be poking through here and you'll need to trim them off at the end with dikes or a grinder. Okay, so you're going to start with a big 4x8 sheet of plywood, and you're going to cut it in half. This is a 4-foot by 4-foot square. You're going to cut that off, and that'll be extra that you can use to pretty up the sides of the desk if you want to. Then, you're going to cut this in half. You're going to have 2 feet by 4 feet, and this is going to be your main desktop. Then here, you're going to go to one of the edges, you're going to cut a 45-degree angle straight from there, and you're going to take this off. Then, you're going to measure this side. This is all going to be one big piece. You're going to measure from this angle 2 feet, because this 2 feet needs to attach to the other side's 2 feet. And I'll show you that in a second. But you do this to 2 feet, you measure that, you mark all the way along, and then you cut this piece off. And that will give you your second piece. This is what you want to end up with. The reason that you cut this angle side 2 feet is because you want it to match up with this flat side's 2 feet, and that'll give you your 45-degree angle. Okay, to start, you're going to cut 6 of these. They're going to be 30 inches tall. Each of these 2x4s, you're just going to cut each of them one at a time to 30 inches. That is 2.5 feet. And that's the usual height of computer desks. I have super long legs and it fits me just fine. Then for each of the other parts, you're going to have 2 different pieces that are going to be the same length. So you can just measure once and then cut twice. Usually that's not good advice. This guy's going to be your 4 feet because he's going to go all the way across just to make it easy. And then this other guy's going to butt up against it. So he's going to be 21 3/4. Because 2x4s are 1.5 inches wide. This guy over here is going to be 15 3/4, and this guy right here is going to have an angle cut in it, but at the very tip of the angle will be 41 inches. So you measure the 41 inches and then cut a 45-degree angle there, and then it'll line up just right with that. Assuming all your wood is straight. My wood is not exactly straight, so that's why this is lower than that is. To put all this together, again, I used 2" screws, which they don't go in very deep if you just get them to that length. You only got about 1/2 inch, and some of that is just the start. So I put them in a bit more, so they're about halfway into the back piece of wood. And you can see that all of these are sunk in, and I put 4. You can probably get away with 2 or 3 if you're using 2.5-inch screws. And then that'll bring you to a good distance all the way inside. And you can just do like a triangle shape or however you want. Whatever shape is your favorite. But you attach these guys together. Pretty much you build all of the uprights on a flat ground, as flat as you can get. And then you can flip it over and you can attach the top pieces to it. So pretty much you want to attach each of the uprights with your screw pattern of choice, and you don't really need to drill any pilot holes. These guys, you'll just put 2 in going long ways there. And same thing over here. I used a 3.5-inch screw here, and then no screws here because they're all kind of held in place by the main structure, so you know. Just use as many screws as you've got. You might notice that this looks a little off-centered. This is actually how I designed this, so that I have a little bit of overhang, almost 3/4 of an inch, when it's actually put on the right way. Because I was planning on cutting this in half and hanging it down, or doing something fancy with it, but I haven't decided what I'm doing yet. So my measurements here are a little bit different, but if you want to cut this 4x4 down and cut it to fit this, then it would be a lot nicer looking on the front. I almost forgot, one of the most important pieces is the 2x4 that fits right there. So I cut a 45 that way, and I cut a 45 here to make it mesh against there. And that's why these 2 pieces aren't right up against the edge here. It doesn't really matter where you put all these. Obviously the corner ones you want to kind of put in the corners, but these here are spread apart so that this can slide in and be flush with this. And the whole structure is sturdy enough that you don't need to have any bracing under the front of it, because this is 3/4 inch plywood. But yeah, I'm gonna flip it over and put it back together and show you how to make the top look pretty. The way I made the tabletop look nice is you'll notice that these have their own little crater for the screw heads to go into. What you're gonna want to do with that for the top, just to make sure the top stays nice, like it's whatever with the 2x4s, you don't need to drill pilot holes, but I drilled pilot holes in even spacing, so these are like 8 inches or something, these are like 6 or 8, just however many screw holes you think you need. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna drill your pilot hole with a drill bit that is about the size, where the screws come in. About the size or a little smaller than the shaft, not the threads, because the threads need to catch the wood. That's how screws work. Then you're going to take one that is slightly bigger than the shaft, and you're going to just poke that in at the very top, and that's going to make sure that when you do screw this in, you're not going to create like a divot in the wood. If you do this, then it'll just kind of smush it down and it won't like create a divot. So it'll look a lot nicer. Yeah. So whenever you put them in, they should be just below the surface, but like just a smidge. Nothing fancy. And you'll do that all the way around on the back side, obviously where the 2x4s are. And you'll just go all the way around, and that'll be the main structure. With each of those together, with the tops and the frames together, that is plenty of support for moving these individually. And then when you put them together, they stop wobbling at all because they're all connected to each other, and it's just one big, almost right angle. But yeah, that's the quick and dirty way to make a cheap but really nice and big computer desk. I'm going to be using this for a lot more than just a gaming setup, but you know, you can fit 3, 4, however many monitors on you want. You can also stain it. You can put like a urethane coat over if you like the wood look of it, and you can also stain it and then seal it after that. Yeah, that's about it. I don't have anything else. I feel like I should say something else. Like the video if you like this. I don't know if I'll make another one, but if enough people ask me to, I might make tutorials for other stuff that I make. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.